Hello and welcome to a brief overview of Spirit Island. This is a video that is meant to accompany my video review, which will be forthcoming very soon. I'm going to record it and have it linked in this video. So anyway, I'm just going to give you a brief overview. I'm not going to go through everything here in the game. Specifically, other walkthroughs out there are going to be probably more comprehensive. But I just wanted to give you a brief idea of how to play, which will then help if you're going to watch my video review for you to sort of unpack what exactly it is that I'm talking about. So that video review is going to involve, just for me to sell it to you really quick, a lot of analysis. I'm going to talk at length about the game. I'm going to give critical comparisons where I compare Spirit Island to many other similar games or other comparable games, other games that breed some sort of comparison. So if you want to hear how this game faces off against your favorite games, go ahead and check out that review. And what it's called is going to be the Sallen Coefficient. I'm Joe Sallen. I give the Sallen Coefficient, which is a kind of an indicator of how many decisions you'll be making per minute, or whether or not a game is going to be worth your time if you're looking for strategic depth and tactical decisions, together with how much time you're going to be spending in the game. So let's get down to it. Let's do this brief overview of Spirit Island. So, welcome to Spirit Island. Oh man, I apologize for that camera. I had it set up just perfect, and now it's no longer working right. Okay, well, we'll get her backed up just a little bit here. Okay, that works. So here in Spirit Island, you are going to be specifically these spirits. So I've got a two-player game set up, and what you're going to be doing is taking your spirit and their abilities, playing cards every turn with the goal of eliminating the invaders. First of all, by just eliminating their presence from the board. The white pieces are all invaders. And you're also going to be trying to get them more and more scared, easier to chase them off. And then ultimately you can just win by scaring them enough. Or you'll lose if you ever totally lose your presence from the board, which is represented by these discs. And you'll also lose the game if the board ever becomes totally blighted. And that works kind of similar to like in Pandemic, where there's only so much blight in the game, depending on how many players there are. And once you lose that much blight, it's game over, man. So how do you play Spirit Island? Well, first of all, it's important to talk about how the enemies behave, because the enemies who you're fighting against are going to be quite important. So in this game, the enemies are automated by a deck that is separated into phases 1, 2, and 3, kind of to make it so that it's not super, super hard. Whenever a card comes off the top of the deck, which is part of setup, you're going to first explore that area. And every card is a type of terrain that is going to correspond to a specific color and texture of terrain on the board. There's 2 spots on this side of the board, the balance side of the board, on each player board. Frequently in the rules, they refer to player boards. As you can see, this is like a board and another board. You play with one of these per player. But there's going to be 2 spots, and each of them is going to get an explorer on it. But it only gets explorers if there is presence or they're next to the coast. So there has to be either a town or a city next to it, or they have to be on the coast, because that's where the invaders come from. So at the start of the game, you're going to explore with these invaders. Then the players are actually going to get to take actions. And as the players take their actions, then the enemy is going to go in between that sort of. So there's going to be some fast abilities, and there's going to be some slow abilities. The enemy goes off in between the fast abilities and the slow abilities. So the way the enemy works, though, is that first they will always take whatever action is furthest to the left. So let's just say it's 2 rounds in the future. The first thing they would do would be Ravage. Ravage is bad because that's actually how you get damage on the land. The way that Ravage works is if there's at least 2 points of damage, which the way these invaders work is that you've got 1 point in the small invader, 2 points in a medium-sized town, and then 3 points, which you can kind of see that there's 3 little buildings in the city, there's 2 in the town, and the explorer is just him by himself. But each hit point is a point of damage. So they're hit points and points of damage, and they will inflict that much damage on the land. So the way that the damage works is, let's just say that we had a city in this wetland, and in this wetland, let's just say we just had one of these native friends of ours. These little mushroom huts are our native friends that start out on the board, and they're going to help us out, but they are only attacked when they are attacked, which is kind of to their detriment. Unless they're being defended by us, that means they're going to incur damage before the invaders actually get hurt. So in this Ravage, if they were ravaging wetlands, just specifically on this board, we would have 4 points of damage which we have 4 points of day hand, because each of these day hand, which is our natural invader or our natural inhabitant friends, each one of them has 2. So 4 points of damage is enough to totally wipe out these day hand. Boy, that's sad. Before that even happens, though, we actually need to add a blight. And since there already was 1 blight token here just because of setup, we're going to have to add another blight. It's kind of like an outbreak. But you get to choose what area it goes to, so you always choose a place that you hope to not ever get another blight. So that was really bad. These invaders stay there because the day hand, our natural or native friends, were not able to do anything to them. And that's it. That's it in that territory. Here, however, we only have 1 point of damage, which isn't quite enough to kill this day hand who has 2 hit points. So we flip it upside down, but that day hand is now going to attack back, and it does damage equal to its hit points just like everything else, and that would destroy this invader. So let's set it up over here, though. Let's say that we had all these day hand that's over here. 4 of them. That makes good for demonstration. So 4 points of these guys are going to kill 2 day hand, but then there's day hand left over, of course, after they blight the land, because they always do that first. If there's at least 2, they always blight the land. But anyway, the day hand are now going to attack back, and they have 4 points, which is enough to kill them. And since they killed a city, cities generate 2 fear. As I said earlier, you're trying to push away the invaders, and the ways you can do that is by killing them, which causes fear. And the more fear you get, the higher the fear level, the terror level goes. And at terror level 1, which is how the game starts, you have to totally clear all the white pieces off the board to win the game. Yeah, good luck doing that. At terror level 2, though, which is basically the way fear works, is it's this meter that has a certain amount of pieces per player, and whenever you generate fear, you put it from this upper area to this bottom area. Whenever you get totally done enough so that there's no more left in the fear pool, you move all of it back and then generate a fear card. Once that happens enough times, you're actually going to raise the terror level, and then you'll get these fear cards, which are good effects that happen before the invaders actually get to do anything, but they're kind of random, so they get flipped over. There's different levels of fear. So at terror level 1, this card would only remove 1 explorer from an inland land. But at terror level 2, you can remove either an explorer or a town, which is what they call the 2 hit point pieces, from an inland land. So anyway, the effects are going to get stronger as the game goes on, but they're not going to be known until you flip them during the actual fear phase. If you ever do generate enough fear to get to terror level 4, which would be after 9 fear cards in the standard introductory game, that's just a straight up victory. However, once you get to terror level 3, now all you have to do is get rid of these big cities, and all the other white pieces don't matter. And if you can do that at any time, you win the game. So that's a brief overview of how you actually are going to win, and how the explorers and the invaders work, and how the day hand fights work. When they build, they're always going to build in the territories that are shown on the card, specifically underneath that, just like they do for Ravage and Explore. When they build, they're always going to add either a town, or if there are more towns than there are cities, they'll add a city. So that's how they really ramp up. So the single explorers will turn into, will not turn into, but they will add towns. And then once there's a town there, if in a later turn you get a build, then you add a city, and now you've got 6 points of invaders there, and they can really ramp up. So that's the main way that the invaders work, and the main way that you're going to be managing them and beating them here up on this part of the game. But what are you actually doing in this game? Well, that is dependent on your abilities that you have, which are represented by cards and your player mat of your specific spirit. There are 8 included spirits in the game. These spirits will have a brief description of what they do, a little bit about their play style, which actually tells you how much defense, control, fear, utility, offense that they have, what their complexity level is, and then you'll be told how to set them up. So it's has a very good description here of what the different powers are, so you can make a choice based on what you're most interested in. There's, like I said, there's 8 in the base game, and 4 of those are low complexity, 2 are medium, and then 2 are high. Once you get done setting it up, though, you'll turn it over, and there's going to be these spots where you're actually going to fill them in, like I have below here, with your presence discs. And you're always going to have 1 left open on both tracks on your presence disk, because this is going to track how much energy you produce every turn, which is kind of like the currency in the game, as well as how many cards you can play from your abilities. You're going to have starting abilities as well. Other things that are tracked on here is the 3 potential things or more that you have for when you grow, which happens at the beginning of every round, and also an innate ability and a special rule. So you need to take all those things into consideration when you make your decisions. So the way that a turn actually would look is that first, the spirits get to choose a growth. Now, growth is going to be how you add your presence to the board. You're always going to pick one of the 2 tracks and then add presence to the board based on what type of growth you're doing. If I want to gain a power card, which is one of the things this guy can do with his growth, I choose either a minor power card or a major power card, but I have to discard one of my previous cards. And then I can only add presence at range 0. There's a lot of things in this game that are dictated by range, and your range is going to be 0 for this, which means I have to put a disc on top of a place that already has a disc. If it's at range 1, I can do anything adjacent. Range 2 would be 2 territories away from my presence, and so on. So my 3 different options here are to reclaim my cards, which isn't going to matter in the first round because I haven't played anything. When you play cards, they're going to go to a discard pile, and now in the future, if you want to get that card back, you have to take the action to reclaim cards. The other option, so I'm not going to choose that. That doesn't make any sense here on the first turn. The other option is to gain a power card and add presence at range 0, or I can gain 2 energy and add presence at range 1. So if I actually want to spread out, I'm going to have to choose to add presence at range 1, and then I gain 2 energy. Energy is actually conserved from round to round, so maybe I could use that in the future. Then I'm going to gain energy equal to however much is showing on my energy track, which is 3. And now I'm going to be able to play a single card. When I play cards, there's a lot of information contained on these cards. First of all, you just have the effect of the card. And it may or may not even come into focus here. It's kind of tough to see. It's probably going to be tough to see. So I apologize. There's probably people out there who have a little bit more of a recording studio setup, and they probably have better walkthroughs, but I'll at least tell you what this does. You can see 3 icons here on the side of this card. And those 3 icons are going to give you elements, which are going to help you to unlock your innate abilities, which are on your board. You're also going to have a specific speed of the card, which is also corresponds to the color of the card. Blue cards are slow, meaning that the enemy gets to act, and then you go and do your effect. And then red cards are fast, meaning you do them before. It says a range, and it says target land. Sometimes you might be limited to where you can do it. It might be at a certain range of one of your sacred sites, which sacred sites are just where you have 2 or more presence. So, and they're kind of represented by this thing that looks like a, it looks kind of like a star underneath 2 discs. So once you play a card, which also has a cost, this one costs 1. The one underneath that I have here, I have one costing 3. So holy crap, these guys are expensive. Anyway, you're going to also have to pay for the cards that you play, and then you're going to have them go off. And you may have your innate ability also go off, but it's going to be really hard when this guy starts because it requires multiple symbols, and if I'm only playing 1 card, I'm only going to get 1 symbol. So these effects on these cards can do anything like push, which what you'll do if you're pushing is you'll take any number of figures, well, not any number of figures, but whatever it says. If it says push 2, then I could take 2 explorers that are in 1 territory and push them to any adjacent. Gather is the exact opposite. You choose a territory and hoover them in. And the other things you could do would be inflicting damage, which is always done to the invaders. If you do damage equal to the hit points, which is 3, 2, and 1, then you destroy them and may generate fear. Other effects will be maybe support focused. Defend, you'll add a little token that looks like a shield to that territory, and now when the invaders attack in that territory, they're going to do their damage minus whatever you did, but it still counts as an attack, so your native friends still do fight back. So defending is really the main thing that this specific spirit is all about. This spirit over here is more about manipulating where the Dayhan are located. The Dayhan are these native people, and so anyway, she's going to be moving them around and doing all kinds of things based on where those Dayhan are at. So I'm sure that there are things here with the game that I've not gone over, But it's a brief overview, and I hope that just gives you an idea that you're going to be needing to manipulate your special rules, how much economy you have based on your presence on the board and how you've been able to place it. You'll also be, all of your card effects are going to be based on that presence as well. You're going to be reacting somewhat to where the enemy explores because you want to take care of those explorers before they're able to build and then blight the land. You always want to keep these native friends, these Dayhan, alive because they're going to help you. And in general, you're going to be trying to fight them off until you can get them scared enough so that they run away, or scare them and then destroy them so that they still run away because you've destroyed all their cities and they are now to the point where they're ready to just leave your island. So that is Spirit Island. And well, there's a few other supplementary things I can talk about here that are not going to be used in this base game. Though this is one thing that I did still have set up. There's a blight card, which tells you that after a certain amount of blight is removed from the card and put on the board, you flip it over and it has a negative effect, and it tells you how long the game's actually going to be. Is the game going to get, if you put 5 per player on here, then the game's going to be significantly longer. Sorry, you guys can see that. 5 per player on this card would mean the game's going to be longer. However, another card in the base game only gives you 4, but the effect that happens every round isn't quite as bad. You at least get to choose. So blighted island effects can also take place in the game, but there's really not that many. There's only 2 of them in the base game. Whenever you gain cards, the cards are going to be similar to the ones that you have in your starting hand, but you're just going to be gaining all sorts of cards and being able to, by the end, this guy can now play 4 cards, whereas at the very start he can only play 1. So that changes quite a bit. Other ways that you can really upgrade the difficulty of the game, because it might seem complicated at first, but this game is quite beatable, even if you're playing with new players, if people know what they're doing. You can add scenarios, which actually some of these scenarios are from the expansion, so we'll not show you those. But there is 4 different scenarios, 2 of which don't even increase the difficulty. And then there are 3 different adversaries, which represent different sort of colonizing forces that each have 7 different levels of difficulty. Their base level plus 6 more. So you can mix these 2 together. You can choose 1 scenario and 1 adversary and make the game quite a bit more difficult once you know what's going on in the game. So that is Spirit Island, and I hope you will stick around, or I hope you will check out my video review, which is going to be recorded very, very soon.